Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have an awesome show for you today. Got a big panel. Chris is having some technical issues, but he will be here shortly. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe and like and hit the notifications bell. Make sure that we're covered that way, and we will carry on to the conversation. Before we start, any thoughts from the crowd? Any questions coming up that because I have a couple questions right off the bat from the audience, and we can get into those shortly. Um, but any thoughts beforehand?
No, looking forward to seeing where it goes, boys.
Absolutely.
Me too. So I'm gonna jump into a topic, and I'm gonna let you guys kind of discuss it while I do the magic behind the scenes, so that I can pull the questions up on
Get behind your curtain, wizard.
exactly. So that's how it's going to work. But here's the thing: we were speaking about this the other night. Shaun was, what about me? And
I believe it's a question mark and then an exclamation mark. What about me?
I guess depends on how you ask the question or make the statement, whichever one. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this right away. Is the need for recognition, the desire for recognition, or the development of the idea of recognition as well. So I'm going to ask this very broad question: how do we manage the desire for recognition? Who wants to jump in first?
I don't mind just to set the stage a little bit,
Sure.
just with an interesting thought that popped in, at least interesting to me, popped into my head. Just maybe we can start off with that. As I see it, I think that there's a bit of a difference maybe now versus when I was a young guy. I'll speak maybe just for the military as a whole, perhaps when I was in. Man, I just wasn't into getting recognized. I mean, if I got recognized, it was uncomfortable. I didn't seek it, it just happened. But now I see that a lot of people actively pursue being recognized every single day. They're unhappy if they're not acknowledged every single day. I grew up not being acknowledged and got used to it. I just did my job, and that was enough for me. And if I got a pat on the back, I just wanted to get out of there and keep on doing my job. But now I see a lot of folks, and the job is getting recognized before the job even starts. And so I don't know how it all came to a point where you now get to talk about the thing that you haven't done yet, and you want to be recognized for talking about the thing that you haven't done yet, and you may never do the thing that you're talking about. And if you don't, now you want to be recognized for struggling to not do the thing that you talked about. And it's a really weird environment that I'm not used to. And so I'm curious here on the panel if any of you can kind of point at a highlight moment or a high watermark moment or whatever it is that you think, not that it all went wrong, but where it just kind of veered off the track and became sort of what I consider to be now this really weird world of everyone wants to get recognized for nothing.
That's a great question. And you know what? I'm going to throw Chris onto the fire because he just jumped in late.
Dude, he doesn't even know. Don't throw him. That is the wrong.
I'm just kidding. We'll give it to.
I totally respect that. I respect that.
Well, I mean, if we wanted to have a bit of fun in the green room, but
we'll give you a little bit to catch up there, Chris. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that you were here. So,
well, I appreciate it. So
I'm going to toss this to Chad. How about you, right off the bat? What are your thoughts?
You know, everything Shaun said was I don't know if you want to redo it. It was so perfectly said. I remember being in the military, same thing, right? Like getting an award or doing something. It just felt weird. Even today, if someone thanks me for doing something, I'm not big on it. Never have been. Just kind of put your head down, do the job, and move on to the next task. I think that's just kind of always been my kind of deal being a Montana kid. You know, you just put your head down and you did it. And if you got recognition for it, it was just kind of, you know, sprinkles on the cake, as you will. You know, it wasn't anything you wrote home about. So everything Shaun said was just nail on head for me.
Okay. Well, then who else?
Oh, come on, boys. You can do You can
I'll jump on
throw a
this
little
one.
bit more
Okay.
squeak into that.
Let's jump on this one. I agree with all of you.
Matthew, go ahead.
No, yeah, you're right. Like part of the military, you did your job, you carried on, you did the next thing, right? And you're right. When it came down to say, hey, good job, here's accommodation, it was like, okay, I did my job. And you've heard it, you guys have heard it several times, like, oh, he got a promotion, or got a reward for doing his job, right? But I think that's part of that culture, though. And being in the military is a separate culture than what we actually like the rest of the world, right? That's kind of where it goes with that. With right now, currently, I'm kind of a student mentor at the school I'm teaching, and I do a lot above and beyond what needs to be done for my job and my pay grade. But it's not my employees or employers. It is not the bosses ahead of me that I really want people to recognize. I want the students underneath me to have the trust and understanding that they can approach me in that regards for whatever their questions they have, whatever they want to talk about. That's the recognition I want, to be that person who be trusted to go to, right? And to go on with Shaun's point too, like how people were going on about I want recognition for things I haven't done, but how I've tried. That can also be a positive and a negative at the same time, because that's drawn attention that you are trying, right? But you're right, where it's also blind in that you're getting recognition for not doing what you actually need to do.
That's a good point. All right, Chris, are you fully up to speed now? Because I'm going to throw you in here.
I'm about halfway up to speed. What was the original question?
Oh, Chance.
Yeah, I know. I'm bad for this.
You're the worst on this one right now.
The original question is, what about me? The idea or the need for recognition, and how do we manage that?
That's a good question. The need for recognition. I think the military kind of pounds that out of you for however long you were in, right? It's like, no, you just do your job, and half of you guys have mentioned that already. It's like, no, you just do your job and move on, right? I think it's important though to take pride in the work that you do, regardless of the recognition. And I think the recognition really just serves to reinforce that pride in one's work. It kind of goes back to that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if you never get recognized, and you are just doing your job, I can see how one could easily slip into the habit of, well, I'm not gonna give this my full attention or full energy. I think the need for recognition is really just a reinforcement of doing one's best, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. See, and Shaun, I had a reason for doing this because I wanted to make sure that we got Matt on here to round us off, because he doesn't come from the military background. So he's going to give us a completely different side of this. And that's why I want to do him last. That's why I threw you on the fire, Chris. So Matt, hit us up.
Sounds
good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with all of you. I think I grew up knowing I need to put the hard work in and do the work before expecting recognition, right? Like that's just a character trait that my parents instilled in me. But what I'm seeing now in terms of when we try to hire people, or I'm talking to other people in the industry too, like business professionals, entrepreneurs, a lot of people they're hiring are expecting to receive before they actually give, right? So they want to know what they're going to get out of this before they actually start adding value to this corporation, this organization, this team. And I think some of that stems from probably they think that's what gives them significance and value. And they could say, I have this title, I have this role, so I've made it, or that people will admire me, I'll have influence, I'll have whatever else. But in reality, they're chasing a title, but they don't want to put the work in to do that. I'm not saying that I don't sometimes fall into that too, but I know that character traits and values to be gleaned and focused on are putting in the work, and then that will ascend you in titles. So if we think of like a hierarchy of leadership, you want to have a leader who got there because of what they've done, not because of the education they had, or they just got put in this role without actually working their way into that. So I think that's kind of a roundabout way of going about, like, I think people are seeking the title before they actually want to put the work in.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that is definitely one of the issues here. What can we do? What can we do to manage that desire or thing in the background for those that are just realizing, oh, maybe I have to put in work now? How do we get over that little voice in the back of the head that's like, I'm doing my job. Somebody should say, hey, good job. Right? Like Shaun earlier today on his live on Instagram gave me a little pat on the back and then immediately was like, but don't take it as
That's
you
right.
still got work to do, right?
Yeah.
So how do we...
Any senior NCO knows this. Someone comes into your office or into your tent or into the patch of dirt that you're laying on, and you're about to give them some critical feedback. And it starts like this. Good job. All of those things were bad jobs. And good job. See you later.
Mhm.
That's how it works. Well done. Not so well. Well done. Get out of here. That's the feedback loop. I mean, do I have it wrong? I mean, there's
sandwich.
much more nuance to it than that, but that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Depending on the amount of time you've got and who's standing in front of you. But that's how it works. You get told good, bad, good. And that's all I was doing. Good job, Chance Burles. Pick up the pace.
Shaun, that reminded me of a clip from, have you ever seen the movie Hancock? Where
No, I haven't.
Will Smith
No.
comes, he literally superhero flies in, goes to the cop. Good job. Good job. Yeah. And they're like, good, now go solve the problem. No,
Yeah.
I agree with Shaun. Like, that's like the feedback loop is very, very useful. And I use that too with the students. Like, it's like, yeah, things that sustain, things that improve, things not to do again. But I believe that it's recognizing the act itself, not the person. Like, you did a good job, or I liked how you did that job, right? So, or that job was done right. So you're separating the actual task from the person itself, and that makes I find in my experience, the person wants to do that task better for the next time and the next time, right? So it doesn't get their head; it gives them a goal forward for the next time they want to complete that same task.
I like that. Anybody else got thoughts?
Yeah, when someone says, what about me? I just tell them, earn a nod.
Ooh.
Earn my nod.
Yep.
Like, you ain't going to get a nod just because you're breathing air. And my nod isn't handed out on a daily basis. I reserve it for, you did a good job. And so if someone wants a, what about me? You'll get a nod if you freaking worked your arse off. And so I want to take it back to the military now, and how we can all maybe loosely agree that we were all taught that good, bad, good, now get out of here. And so we can establish, generally speaking, that maybe we all got used to just getting on with doing the job as best as we could and didn't expect a whole bunch of pats on the back. So if we can establish that, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment, what goes wrong, or what is going wrong when veterans that I know or veterans that I don't know that have gone through that system, that all understand how it works and that all can do that thing, and then a day after they get out or 10 years after they get out, they start, what about me? What about me? But not doing any work. And they know the game. They know how it's run. They know how you earn. You know, you got to earn your seat every day. They know that. But at what point or why does it get forgotten that you got to earn your day, man? And I don't know where that got forgotten, but that's what I'm seeing happening out there to a spectrum of veterans who aren't earning every day. And I don't mean like in, working in a business or in a fast food restaurant or whatever. I'm talking about as a person. Earn your seat today as a human. When did that stop for a number of veterans? Any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. Who wants to take that one? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Give her, man.
So throughout this conversation, I'm reminded of a motto that some of the Danish army use, and it's rather to be than to seem. I think sometimes folks like the idea of a title, or like the idea of status, or like the idea of being rich or whatever. But yeah, it actually requires work to achieve certain levels of status. And I get DM'd a lot, young kids, maybe in high school or just in college, that like, hey man, tell me how to get through selection or get into SF or whatever. And some guys are serious, and they're like, they want to be about the lifestyle, and they want to be part of a bigger story than themselves. And then some guys have just played a lot of Call of Duty, and they like the idea of being SF or in some kind of special operations. So I have to catch myself sometimes too. I like to dream big about where I want to be down the road, but I try to remind myself that it's more important, or it's more desirable to actually be the thing than to appear to be the thing.
Yeah,
That's
agreed.
a great point. Anybody else want to jump on this?
Well, I'd just like to build a little bit more off of what you were saying, pal, and that's I get the same thing in my DMs as well, precisely as you just described. And I struggle with it because my disconnect is I don't understand how you don't get that it's work.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work. It's not a button that you can push and it shows up in your lap. I mean, if you're asking me this question, you're asking the wrong dude. You haven't got anything figured out about what work is. And so it's almost understandable when I get DMs from people who have never served and are dreaming about serving or dreaming big. I'm into it as long as they're realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But a different topic is veterans who have gone through the process, whatever that process means to them. They understand the game, and now they're out of the game and they've forgotten the game. How did that happen? That if someone served 10 years in the military and knows how to earn, at what point did they forget that they still need to earn?
I have a thought on this, but I want to see if anybody else has any thoughts on this before I jump in.
I'll jump in real quick on that one.
Okay,
Chance.
yeah, man.
So I kind of like remember when I said that point is a culture within a culture, and that's kind of where it is. Because when you're in the forces or that kind of establishment, you are expected that, you're taught that, and everyone else plays with those rules, right? Your 3 points, your sandwich of a critique, you're expected, not to make a big noise that you've done something good. But when we leave that culture and go into someone else's culture, which, civilian world is different for the most part. You see this and it makes you toxic. And I see it when I'm going through school and going from work. Like, I had to dumb myself down going through school because I would have been that person who would have done everything. And, that's my day. See you later. Right. That being said, though, Shaun, that's a superpower that once you tap into that again, you are indispensable in the environment you're in. Right? If everyone else is playing, there's an old saying in Dutch, being normal is crazy enough, right? And if you are being that dude who is like, I don't need, like, I'm doing my job at 1,000% because I can, because that's what I enjoy. And everyone else is like, I'm only doing a 50, but I need to be patted on the back every time I drink a cup of coffee. You're going to stand out at the end. You're going to be that person that is indispensable to that environment.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's earning your way for sure. That's earning the day and being recognized for it over a long period of time for sure.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Matt or Chad, before I make...
Yeah, I think it's about being present, right? Like having that mindset of being present in the journey and the growth. Because when you think about it, if we're thinking of the destination, whether it's a title, whether it's success in a business, whatever else it might be, and you're not present in the journey itself, you're going to reach this title and you're going to see, oh, this is only a moment, a fraction of time. So I need to adopt this mindset and help this next generation adopt a mindset of growth. And how do you grow? How do you develop? You invite feedback, and feedback, like the compliment sandwich, is, hey, you did this really well, and let's improve on this. And then go try this out, right? That's an iteration. You're committing to the growth. You're committing to that mindset and knowing that, the meaning and fulfillment isn't in the destination or the title or whatever else it is. It's in the growth and development in character. And because you can develop in character, you can take that character and apply it to wherever you're serving, right? Whether it's in your family or whether it's in the business world. So I think that's a mindset shift that many people need to have.
Yeah, I agree. Chad, any thoughts before I jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everyone kind of loses their way along a certain path or a journey at times. And, I've definitely shared my story with you on how that changed. And I was very successful in the corporate world because I was so task driven, right? Go, 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 give it to me, get out of my way. The unfortunate part about that is I wasn't very politically correct, right? Like I could call something out and everybody in the room knew it needed to be called out, but I was that guy that stepped on my tongue every single time because I just wasn't good at beating around the bush, right?
Yeah.
So that happens. So then you get the resentment and the anger that stirs inside you. And so I think that's where some veterans, even myself included, you lose your way on that path, right? Because you have busted your butt. You have put in the time. You've worked 12, 14-hour days to prove your worth, but yet you're not climbing that ladder because you're just maybe not politically correct, or you just don't play the whole corporate government game, right? You just get to the point. So I think you can get lost along that way. And for me to get back on that path was, recently, like I told you, doing the whole ketamine.
Yeah.
Now I live present. Now I live day to day. Now I understand how important time is, and that it's not about the destination. It is about the journey. And we all screw up, but it's getting back on that right path so we can continue to lead friends, family, or like me, I've got 2 little boys. So I can definitely see how us veterans get off path, but it's hopefully the brothers in arms that we can hold each other's hands and kind of get everybody on the right track again. Because we all have the work ethic. We've been there, we've done it, we put the time in. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
It is. Yeah, it's great.
It's so awesome that you said that, because it highlights a bunch of not issues, but subjects in that couple of minutes. And something that I thought of is, for myself as an example, I would have been in those shoes as well, where I was like, where did everyone's IQ go in this meeting right now?
Yep.
And so after a few of those, I had to bounce. And I've never worked for anyone since.
Yeah.
I've been my own boss for over 2 decades. And so for anyone who's listening out there, if you're, first of all, you've got to earn the day every day. You earn every single real-time moment.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling because you're surrounded by people who don't get you, well, bounce to somewhere that people do get you. And if you've bounced a few times and no one's getting you, and you're shrugging your shoulders like, what is even going on? Is the world crazy and it's just me who's normal? Well, reach out and chat with some bros and see if it is you or if it's the world or whatever it is. And ultimately, if you can't figure that out, work for yourself. Figure out a way to work for yourself for a little while and see how that plays out.
Yeah, that's a great point. We got a comment from Eric here saying social media encourages people to do just that, get likes for doing nothing, as we were saying earlier. It's accessible and there's opportunity to be monetized. People want the same lack of resistance everywhere now. And it brings a point, that's what I want to talk about, is that, when we're in the military or in a corporate job or in some sort of identity that we trying to uphold, everyone's playing the same game, right? Everybody in the units we're all working the same team, we're working for the same mission, we're working for the same task, and even inside that, we can still get this issue. And a lot of it has to do with what's being seen. Because if I've never seen anything other than a nod from my seniors, cool. When I get a nod, that's like a wicked. Like, I feel good, right? Because that's all I've ever seen is that's the, you did good job. Excellent. Get out of my office. But if you start seeing things around you where, again, you're putting judgments on other people, right, is where you see this particular. I'll give you an example from my experience in the military. I bust my ass. I work hard. I do the job. My leadership goes like this. Well done. You did good. And I'm like, I feel good. And then I look at my peer who's in another squadron, in a different troop with different leadership, and he does less work from my point of view, and he gets to go on the Sapper Leader course or some sort of, you know, Gucci tasking or whatever. And you're sitting there going, what the heck, man? And that's where that question starts going like I put the work in. I got a thumbs up, and this guy's going to Florida on a 6-month course. Like, what's going on? So that, I think it really comes down to what is actually seen versus, you know, the way it's actually done. So if there is a consistency within a unit or a business or so on and so forth, if people are receiving the same sort of reward, I guess, whether it be a thumbs up, whether it be a nod, whether it be a course, whether it be a cash bonus, whether it be whatever, then this question doesn't come up as much. But when you start to see really extreme differences based on who's in charge, I think this question comes up anymore. Or that's where, and then also when you talk about the veteran question, Shaun, like you were saying, once you get out, no one's on the same team anymore. And now you're sitting there going, and the other part of it is you start to get celebrated for being a veteran, right? Hey, you did it. You served your country. Awesome. Thanks for your service. You get the handshakes, you get the fist bumps, you get all those, you know, the thumbs up from people around you. And then you see other people whose work you can't see behind the scenes. You don't know what's going on. And you see other people go on TV, or you see another guy get put up on social media and he's now got X amount of followers or whatever. So I think, again, this is where this question comes in. To your point, Shaun, was the fact that it's the comparison. It's the looking at someone else getting something without understanding the work behind it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll throw this out, and then I'm curious as to what you guys build off of it. So here's my observation. It will never be fair. Ever.
Absolutely.
Not till the end of days. None of it will be fair. So whoever's listening to this, get used to that idea. And
true.
So what can you do about it? The system can't fix it. The only thing that can be fixed is you fixing yourself. And any good leader, or wrong, any wise good leader would sit down next to you, Chance, in that moment where you were moaning about some dude had gone off on a course that you wanted to go off on, etc. A good wise leader would have sat down next to you and said, you know what you're doing? You're focusing on the shortcuts. You're focusing on the short game. You're focusing on the things that look sexy.
Yeah.
But you know what's happening right now, Chance Burrows, is you're earning your way and you're actually struggling in it. And the individual who went off on the course, maybe they'll be better than you for the first year or two after that course, because you're struggling right now, because you're having to earn your way in the silence of discomfort. The growth will occur. And 10 years from now, you'll probably be a better person for it. And it's the long game, man. No one sits anyone down and explains the long game within the military or within society. And so the focus on the shortcut, the focus on the immediate gratification, the focus on what about where's my stuff? They're all bizarre little shortcuts, man, that don't serve you well over the long term. The long game is where the real game is. At least that's what I've observed over the last several decades.
Couldn't agree more. Anybody, any other further thoughts? Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that big time.
Jump in there.
I'm in it, right? So, you know, we just launched an apparel company last year to essentially raise mental health awareness of veterans and first responders and of the non-traditional sense, right? So I'm in people's DMs and social media that have massive followings, and some have, you know, reached out and they're wearing our apparel, some aren't. But what I've realized is, like, every failure that I've had, I don't look at it as a failure anymore. Now it's a lesson. Like, what did I learn out of that? What kind of education did I get? And I think as a society, we've always put failures as such a bad thing. Like, no, that's how you learn, so you don't do that again. right? So me being in this and grinding every single day, I would like to see us be a little bit more down the road than we are, but I also know it's part of the journey, and where I'm at is where I need to be. So I think a lot of us forget about that. Like, enjoy the journey, know you're going to fail, and that old, get knocked down 5 times, stand up 6, right? Like, you got to continue to keep pushing forward. But I also think you have to be in the right mindset to do that as well. So,
Yeah,
you do. And you also need to hear it from others. You also need to hear that, guess what? If you fail today, congratulations. That's another Christmas present you just unwrapped. I mean, every failure is like a present, man. Unwrap it and enjoy it. Figure out what present you've got in your hand and go use it. And so not enough of us say it often enough that it's a grind, man. If you're grinding, if you're struggling, if you're failing, congratulations. You're a freaking awesome human.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anybody else? The Mats? Either one of you got a thought on this?
Yeah, I like this conversation around what's more long lasting than short term, right? Like, character development is long lasting, and that it goes into multiple aspects of your life. I can't remember who said at the start, but how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if you have momentary monetary gain, like maybe it's more followers on social media, maybe it's increase profit in your business, that's only going to last for so long. But if you go through hard lessons, you struggle, you develop in character, that's going to last beyond your social media presence, beyond the business you're part of now. Like you're mentioning, you're reaching out to people to start your apparel company, and that's going to help you in other aspects of life too. When you start something else in the future, it's not just the success of the thing you're focusing on now, it's the character development and the person you're becoming to make you more of a person to keep ascending into different positions, instead of just saying, I deserve this position. I'm actually going to work my way up into that because I feel comfortable being there because I grew into that, instead of just thinking this is who I should be.
Great point. Matthew or Chris, you want to jump on here?
Just 30 seconds. Diamonds are made with pressure, not for being right. So
that's a good one.
Yeah, just you have to be exposed to that. You have to be exposed to failure, exposed to discomfort to grow, right? And that can be anything like physical fitness. You got to damage your muscles for them to grow bigger, right? For like Shaun's thing, whereas he went through different occupations and realized, that's not for me. Carried on, did something else. So yeah, you need that stress. You need that punishment in a good way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah. I agree with what everyone has said so far, and I think that if you're not making mistakes, or if you're not failing in some capacity, you're not trying anything either. You're playing it too safe.
That's a good point, and actually leads directly into my next thought. Unless anybody's got some more they want to add on to here.
What about me? I've got another point.
Too bad. You talked enough.
Of course, that's ironic.
So this is the next point. This carries on, and I thought this was very suitable to the conversation as well, is death and growth. So just like we're talking about, failure is a necessary part of learning. And for me growing up, I loved puzzles. And I love puzzles to the point that I would create puzzles for myself. So I would get a new toy or whatever, and I would immediately take it apart to see how it worked. And then I would try to put it back together again from memory of only taking it apart once. And I would fail over and over and over and over, but it didn't feel like failure. It wasn't until I got it done. It was good to go. And then I could put it down and I wouldn't need to touch it again. And I as you guys were talking, I got this thought process that is the idea came to fruition. I took that thing apart and now it's done. I've now let that idea die and I've been able to move on to something else. I can now use the core of that idea as it dissolves in my brain to build upon, and I can work forward. Do you think that this is part of growth, is like what having ideas come up, you complete them, let them die, and then move forward? Or do you think that you build upon them like Lego blocks? Any thoughts? Who wants to take it first? Chad, I'm throwing you on the fire. Boom.
I think it's all growth. I think it all stacks upon one another, right? And depending upon what your journey is or what you have laid out in front of you, I've always been a guy like push that damn pedal to the floorboard until that damn pedal goes through the floorboard. And that's not the way to work. What I've learned, very recently, again, in my early mental health journey, is you don't always have to be that 100 miles per hour. Sometimes you let off that pedal, and it's amazing the different things that kind of flow in, and things that you start recognizing, and different things that you connect. Right, before I would have never known. I would just blow through things just to get it done. So I think learning and stacking those things, I think, as your building grows, you stack those circumstances or those character traits or those failures or those positivities to create you as a whole human being. So I think there's a lot of different answers you could take off that one.
I agree. Anybody else? Matt, I'm going to throw you on.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to agree. You mentioned that you create something, you create an idea, and then you glean something from that. I think you said, Chance, and then you move on to something else. So I think that's like the character traits, the character traits of it, right? You take something from this refinement, from this process of learning and failing, because learning is failing, right? There's no such thing as a failure, because you can always grow from it, right? So you take what you've learned from that, you glean that and put it into the next thing, but you don't do something that's similar, right? You're expanding yourself. You're pursuing something that's outside that fence, that threshold you've tried before. Just like the example of physical fitness, you're getting uncomfortable. You're breaking down your tissues and you're recovering. But in order to keep progressing, you need to do something more than you did last time, right? So you're dying this one gym session, but then your body's dying a little bit more and recovering, and you keep moving up that ladder as you keep pushing on that threshold.
Chris, Matthew, Shaun, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got a little something. So I read, I guess it was a blog a number of years ago by Jack Donovan, and he was referencing the Ouroboros, which is the serpent that's eating its own tail. And I love the idea that he attached to it, and he described it as the snake devours itself, it destroys that which is no longer necessary and no longer serving it in order to provide nourishment to grow and to get better. And I've kind of adopted that as part of my philosophy. And when I coach people is, what are the things that maybe you've been holding on to, and the ideas or mindsets and stuff that you can destroy now and get some nourishment from it, and then move on and grow and get better. And the same kind of philosophy, as was mentioned before, is like in the gym, like there is a destruction process, and it's interesting that we are often addicted to that destruction, and it's cheap therapy for a lot of us, I think, and kind of embracing that destructive nature in order to become a better person. So
yeah, it's a great point. Shaun or Matt, either one, or Matthew.
I don't mind jumping in. So when you were describing the your taking something new, taking it apart, and then spending time trying to put it back together, and then doing that aha moment, and then putting it aside, and then moving on to the next thing. I think that's a fair overview, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's what I saw in my visualized head. Young Chance Burles taking something apart, putting it back together over a period of time, doing one of these, yes, then taking it, and like every other Christmas present for every other kid out there in North America, it now doesn't exist.
Yep.
Like that. Yep. It may have lasted a minute. It may have lasted half an hour. It doesn't matter. But here's the natural outcome as I've seen it. Whatever it is, it gets solved, and then it gets chucked in the corner. Not to be looked or played with again. That's an important distinction.
Absolutely.
Because if we're using that as the example of a problem, take it apart, figure out how to put it back together to solve it. The idea is that when you put that toy back together, rather than getting chucked into the dusty corner, it actually gets put up on the shelf in your room, in your bedroom, where you get to see, oh yeah, I took that all apart and then I put it all together and look at me go. And it's not about like a weird little trophy. It's about the recognition that you can do that, or that you did that, or that in the future you can do it again. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Anyone out there who's struggling with a problem, when you solve it, don't be so eager to throw it into the dusty corner of that never happened. File it away as a solution for the future. Not so much the specifics of it, but the process by which you saw success. You should be observing and shaping in the real time how to do each little puzzle, we'll call it, each little thing a little bit better each time. But you can never build off of your process if every time you solve something, you restart again and you've got a pile of solutions in a dusty corner that never gets looked at. Just as a, I mean, it's a
great point.
It's a thought construct, but I'm sure we could talk about it.
Absolutely. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Just to add, like, I think it's one of the phrases I always lived with in the military and beyond was, take what you need and leave the rest. But for myself, I always added a second part to it, where it is take what you need, leave the rest, but don't forget, because someday you may need it, right? And if the lesson is, what not to do or what to do or how to do it again, right? As long as it's still in your toolbox, then it's still accessible and something that you can use for your own development.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anybody else got any further thoughts on this, or I got a great question that's going to add into this if you guys want to move on.
I don't mind like poking. So now that you've heard that, Chance, have you reframed your example in any different way, or are you still thinking, what are you thinking?
My example, you got it was described eloquently throughout all 5 of your guys' answers, because there was a part of it that was, okay, I'm done with this, huck it. But there was a part of it that I actually gleaned that little technique or the process, and then I was like, okay, good, now I can use this, and I'd put it in my pocket, and excellent, and I would remember how to do those things. And one of the things that I learned out of that was keep your workspace organized, right? So like, I wouldn't take screws off and just start flinging them. I'd start laying them out, and I'd start laying them out how I took them apart. And then I would start laying them in the shape of what I took them apart, so it made putting them back together again easier.
Cool.
But at the same time, I did just chuck the toy or chuck the item or chuck the puzzle without keeping that as a, hey man, like, this process works. So all parts of that, as everybody said, hit different parts of the equation, which is awesome. So here's the question I have for you guys, which came in from one of the audience that plays into this. What was one skill or pursuit you may have enjoyed when you were younger, but chose to or had to abandon that you now regret giving up? Because this is a good one. I'm going to put Matt on the fire first, man. You're up. What are your thoughts?
I was just thinking to myself, well, I hope I'm not the first one, because I need to think about this for a second. This is
I can
good.
come back to you if you want.
Yeah, maybe come back to me. I want to
Okay.
marinate on this a bit.
Okay, then I'm going to put Matthew. You're up.
I'm in the same boat. I want to go last. No. Okay, so here's the thing. Why focus on regret? Why is that something to focus and be negative on, right? I gave up something for a reason, and I learned the reason why I gave up on that. Can I give details right now? No, because I'm wanting to be last. But yeah, like it's not a matter of me like, oh, I wish I did that. It's like, you know what, I tried, I did, or you know what, it came to my limits and I couldn't, and I tried something else that was better. That right. So I guess one of the most recent right now is that I'm not really focusing too much on the culinary arts side, just because with old injuries and stuff, I'm finding it very hard to actually work in a kitchen, chopping all day long, mixing stuff. My wrist doesn't work that way anymore. So I'm kind of taking that pursuit and shifting it to somewhere else in relation to. Do I regret not being a chef? No, I love being a chef, and I'll do it at my pace, on my time, at my value, not someone else's. But I'm moving on to something bigger, better, and very similar. So it's it's not the regret that I'm focused on. It's what I did, what I tried, and what I learned from it.
That's a great point. I love it. Who wants to go next?
I'm ready if you're ready now.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. I like the way you're saying that, Matt. So when I grew up playing competitive hockey, I'm from Canada, so that's something we do here.
Yep.
Two of my front teeth are missing. They're fake, if you can tell. And I played timid. So I didn't play to my full capacity, my full potential. I was scouted by high-level teams, but I never fully lived in to my skill set. And for a long time, I regretted that. I regretted that in my mind. But just over the past 5 years, I've started to meditate and think about that a little bit more and realize that I don't have to regret that, because now I've learned from that, and I've adopted a mindset of being the best steward I can possibly be of everything that I have. Right. And actually going through that when I was younger and realizing I missed opportunities because I was nervous of failing, nervous of actually being in the spotlight, of having this attention. Now I can take that into my day-to-day life, and it's not really a regret, because I'm taking something from it. Because I don't think anything is a failure, like you were mentioned before, or you don't have to regret things if you can actually take something from that failure or something that you needed to give up.
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to throw you on the fire.
So when I was a little kid, my dad, I remember that we were out walking, and he was like, "Dude, you should go to MIT." And I was like, "What's that?" Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Well, why? And it was like, well, he says, well, you're into science and stuff. I was like 5 at the time. And so from age 5 all through my high school career, I was like, yeah, MIT is where I'm going to go. I even visited the campus and like took a tour and stuff. But senior year, I decided to go into like the ministry instead. And so I didn't even go to MIT. I went to a small Christian college and studied religion and philosophy. And I'm really into philosophy now. But like growing up, I always had this kind of like, how do things work? I was kind of chuckling when you said you used to take apart your toys, because I used to find just junk and like old TVs and radios and stuff and just take them apart. So I wanted to know how stuff worked too. And changing like senior year, my dad was like, what do you mean you're not going to go to MIT, or at least try? And I was like, well, I want to do this other thing. But I still have that mind of like, well, how does it work, or how can I build it? I don't want to be too long-winded, but so I was in the Q course, and I was reading like some books about they were just novels, and they had mentioned like clocks or something. So I got really into clocks and how clocks work. So I ordered on eBay a couple of mantle clocks that didn't work anymore, and I took them all apart. And I wanted to build my own clock that had the minutes, hours, but then also would register like days of the week and then lunar cycle too. But I only had a certain number of pieces and gear ratios to work with. And so I forced myself. It was a puzzle I gave myself, kind of like Chance, like we used to do. Mm-hmm. It was a puzzle I gave myself to figure out with these two cannibalized mantle clocks, how to build a clock with the appropriate gear ratios to go from minutes, hours, days, and then the 29 day lunar cycle, and how to make it all work. And I actually bought the clocks off eBay and I had them, and I was starting to piece together the thing, but that last lunar cycle bit was throwing me off. And I remember I was in language class at the last little bit of the Q course, and I was studying Russian, and I was just doing math calculations on my Russian notes until I finally figured out the gear ratio. But as soon as I solved the problem, like, I mean, the gears are just sitting in a box now. I didn't even build the thing because, but I mean, again, long-winded answer, but I found that my brain still works in that way. Like, how does it work? And it actually comes in handy, like when I'm building decks or framing new rooms and houses and stuff. And I used to joke with some of my engineers on my team that me as the medic was the best carpenter on the team. But I think it was primarily just because I liked to figure out how things work and how to build them appropriately. So I didn't really have regret. It was just like I just used that proclivity in a different way, I guess.
No, it's good. Chad, thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think Chris should have gone to MIT. When I was that age, I was too busy picking my nose and mooning the neighbors. So I can't even fathom putting a clock together. Mine's pretty simple, but I think it will probably resonate with maybe a lot of younger gentlemen that are out there. I was a hell of a wrestler in my younger days. Was always first in the city, first in the state in my weight class. And then I made it up to high school. And I stopped, just dead stopped. And the reason being for that is I was this scrawny, not even probably 110 pounds, soaking wet kid. Didn't have a whole lot of confidence. And I was embarrassed to put on a singlet and go out and wrestle in front of all these girls that were very well developed, and I am this scrawny little dude. And I said, to hell with that. I'm going to go on the basketball team. So went and tried out and made basketball my freshman and sophomore year and ended up getting cut just because I didn't like it. I thought that's what all the cool kids did was, do that type of sporting. But I wouldn't say it was a regret because it's part of my story. But that's one thing that kind of sat with me. If I would have just stuck it out and didn't have the negative self connotation in body thoughts and things of that nature, what could I have done with that skill set? So that is a skill set I probably wish I would have dug in a little bit deeper on.
That's a good one. Wrestling is that's a tough skill. How about you, Shaun? Round us
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. The example that comes to mind, which is easy to understand. I do have a regret from my childhood, and that is I played piano for about 10 years. I started it when I was about 7 years old or something when I was living in England. And then when we moved to Canada, I kept playing piano and every day. And then I started playing all kinds of instruments, and I played every instrument there is except the two cool instruments, which are drums and guitar. So you can imagine, I didn't have like the sexy high school career. And so, carrying the flute around or the clarinet or the trombone or the trumpet or whatever, there's no glamour in that. And so playing piano and playing the other instruments, there was nothing in it for like a 15-year-old boy who was looking for a girlfriend. So my focus was always on soccer, indoor, outdoor soccer. I started it when I was a really young kid in England, and I played it all through junior and senior high when we were in Canada. And I was playing a lot, and I loved it. And I loved it more than I loved playing piano. But my dad had bought a piano, and he was insisting that I practice every day. And it came to a point, I guess I was around 16-ish or so, and maybe 17. And I went out for a practice, and I came back, and he said, "Have you done the piano?" I said, "No, I was practicing, and I've got an indoor soccer practice this evening." And he said, "You got to do your practice." And I said, "I don't have time. I want to play soccer." And he said, "Well, make a choice. Make a choice between the piano or soccer." And this was the moment in my life where I should have realized this will be the rest of my life now. This is how my life is going to look. It was the first indication of my personality. When someone gives me a choice like that, I'll chew my arm off. Piano, that's it. I'll never play it again. It was my response because I want to play soccer. Well, no, you've got to play piano. I'll never play it again. It's now done. And I've never played piano since. And that was like, I don't know, a long, long time ago. And I haven't played any other instrument since. Now, I regret making that decision then because I was freaking stubborn and ill-educated, perhaps, on how to negotiate with a parent. But I put my back up, and that was it. That was all. never played it again. And I regret it, man, because I enjoy music. I could have played piano better now than I did then. And back then I was playing it pretty well. So it's a skill that I never got to fully explore to my potential, which is a bummer. But more regretfully was how I decided to make that decision. And it was that split moment of, now I got my backup. That's it. That's all. So that was kind of dumb.
I don't know if I would consider it dumb.
Well, it was an
Short-sighted.
indicator of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, gents, we've been going for almost an hour here. I just wanted to first off say thank you so much for joining us, because this has been an awesome conversation. Does anybody got any final points? Anything that burning in the back of their head that they want to get off the top? Anybody? I'm gonna
just as a follow-on to what I just said, I realized that I could have concluded that with, first of all, don't be me. But more importantly is in that moment, what I wasn't capable of, what I had not been taught to do, a skill that I hadn't yet learned, was how to manage that moment better. I just thought it was a binary, yes, no, 1, 0. And so when my dad threw that challenge at me, I just thought of it as a 1 or a 0. I didn't have the intellect, or not the intellect. I didn't have the experience to be able to see it for what it was and understand that there was an infinite amount of options that I could have deployed at that moment that would have been far better than the one I chose, which was forget about it. I'm out of here, which was dumb. But I just didn't know then. So for anyone who's listening to that story about how I quit piano, don't be me, because there are many other options available to you in that moment. With a little bit of nuance, it could have been managed better. And if you don't have the nuance, what I should have also realized is I didn't have to make a snap decision in the moment without any nuance. And if I could have just said, let me think about it, and then reached out to someone who is smarter or wiser or has other opinions that I could have evaluated against 10 other opinions, it would have been a better opinion than the one I had in the snap moment, which was, see you later. See you later, piano.
As a 17-year-old guy, I remember being 17, and those decisions seemed like they were the simplest things to make.
They were as clear as can be, right? At 17.
Absolutely. Just, this is simple. Boom, done. Out of my life, gone. But 30 years down the road, and you're like, 17-year-old me. Dang. Yeah, we got a comment right here. We all have to let go of every skill, physical trait, relationship at the end of our life, whenever it comes. There's something to be said for someone who can let go of them gracefully. That's an excellent point. Beautifully put, Eric. Thank you.
That was not graceful at 17.
Not at all. I don't think we can do anything graceful at 17. So I'll give you a little bit of slack on that one.
Yeah, I'll take the slack.
Matt, you got any final points before we shut her down?
Yeah, I think there's been so many key points in here, and what I just wrote down, some of them that I took from all of you, is failure isn't a thing, right? It's just an opportunity to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. Excellence, pursuing excellence better than just pursuing achievement, and character is more long lasting than achievement itself.
Beautifully put. Matthew, final thoughts?
I think Shaun should go learn piano again.
Yeah, people have said that.
I'll send him a keyboard.
Yeah,
I know,
right?
dude. I've thought about it, but I don't know.
What's stopping you though? That's the thing, right? I mean, it's the 17-year-old Shaun versus the old Shaun right now.
It's
the old
a great
Shaun
question.
is much wiser.
Matt, to your point, I had thought about it, and here's my honest to God answer. First of all, if I really felt it inside of me now, then I would be executing against it. If it pulled me, I'd be pulled towards it. But it isn't pulling me anymore. And then the other aspect, if it does show up like, oh, I feel it again, then I'll do it. But the other aspect is, I guess, as I get older, maybe I'm busier now than I was when I was 17. And so I find my time, I spend my time on others more so than on myself. I look at myself as a little bit of a selfish little demon sometimes. And so I try to give my time to others than just to myself constantly. So balancing all of that, a piano just doesn't seem a very high priority versus, reaching out to some dude who's a bit in the hurt locker, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Matt, you got any other final points other than poking at Shaun?
No,
he ain't poking. He's, you know what?
I get
it's
it.
super
It's a good
legit,
question.
and I'm
Yeah.
glad he said it because, like, it's what I'm thinking as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because that's what I'm hearing too. Is like, even though you gave up on something, you regret it now. I mean, you're still young enough that you can execute it again.
Yeah, I agree.
Your word, right?
I agree.
And you self-realization, self-discovery, and stuff like that. It's not a priority in your list, and that is fair. That is fair, but at least you're giving it a thought too, right?
Yeah, man. And listening to the passion of things, of course.
Oh yeah, 100%, right? And this is what it's all about. No, that's pretty much it, Chance. I'm good, buddy. This has been phenomenal.
I'm glad you liked it. Chad, you got any final thoughts before we shut her down?
No, this is great, man. This is great. And I actually went a full hour without cussing. So, I'm proud of myself in that realm.
Congratulations.
Yeah, everybody's a winner. I like it. Chris, you got any final thoughts?
No, you guys are way smarter than me. Like everything everybody has said has been solid. So I appreciate you letting me join in on the conversation. I'm definitely a better person having listened to you guys talk. So thank you.
Says the guy that was going to go to MIT.
Yeah, right. At 5.
At 5. I can't thank y'all enough. This has been an outstanding conversation. There are, like Matt said, there are many, many points to pull from here. And I think it'll help everybody who's going to listen and watch this from now on they're going to learn, and they're going to be able to build their life, and they're going to be able to grow every day. And that's the whole point of the collective, here to do it together. So thanks, everybody. Make sure, again, that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you get the email every day when we go live so you can watch. And other than that, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Chimo.
See you.